All right, everybody, welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at number 38. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn, at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I've got a new angle today. I was sitting over there last time, but it's a little bit dark in that alcove, and decided, let me find a different spot to be able to do this podcast. In my hotel room in Minneapolis here, excited to be here and excited to bring great Nuggets coverage to you, the fans who absolutely deserve it and who deserve it for sticking with the Denver Nuggets, as we're going to have a great time. We're going to have a great time this morning, afternoon, talking to you about a tremendous Denver Nuggets win, as the Nuggets take down the Minnesota Timberwolves last night. Final score 117-90, taking game 3, a massive game 3 win for the Nuggets to save the season, flat out. Like, that's exactly what it was. And if it weren't for this win, then things would be getting really bleak for the Nuggets. And I am glad to be able to see them completely and utterly turn that around and make this a series, put some pressure onto Minnesota for them to have to defend their home court now. And who knows? Maybe this comes back 2-2, coming back to Denver, and we can talk about this in an entirely new light. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you can, please hit that like button, that subscribe button down below as we continue to try to grow the podcast. Really appreciate everybody for stopping by. First, I want to tell everybody, got to pay the bills. I want to tell everybody about BetOnline, the number one source for all of your greatest odds and lines for the summer sports this year. MLB, golf, NBA, and NHL playoffs, of course. All the latest stats, news, and scores available for your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including your latest team matchups, player props, and odds on the BetOnline website or their app. So make sure to go stop over there. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. The Denver Nuggets. Who'd have known? Who'd have thought that the Denver Nuggets, especially after the way that last Monday's game went, who would have thought that they would be able to turn this thing around, man? It's unbelievable sometimes to be in this business and to see the way that the stories can change. I appreciate the love here from Tu Maradu. It's unbelievable sometimes the way that this thing can change. Just think about where the fan base was at. Think about where the team was at, frankly, on Monday nights, and then into Tuesday, and then into Wednesday. And the tone started shifting a little bit on Thursday and yesterday, Friday. And you could suddenly start to see, okay, you know what? We could talk ourselves into the Nuggets actually winning this one. We could talk ourselves into the Nuggets winning this series. All they've got to do is win one game. All they got to do is get it started. And lo and behold, that's exactly the way that it went. And I know I'm not the most positive person. I know I don't ever take the most positive outlook on these things, because I find that when a team shows you who they are, it's generally a good idea to listen. And after game 2, I thought the Nuggets were done. I really did. They regrouped, they retooled, and they showed their championship medal. It was a great opportunity for them to do so. And the last time they had really been in this level of adversity, as Rob brings up here, is the bubble. Is the bubble where Denver goes down 3-1 multiple times in that series, in two series. And they find a way to turn it around through the grit and determination of the entire team, spearheaded and led by Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. And that's what Denver needed this time around. They needed that to be able to figure out how they could do this. And it needed to come from their leaders, right? It needed to come from the guys who you trust to get you through those situations. And Jamal Murray comes out last night, 18 of his 24 points in the first half, on 8 of 13 from the field. Didn't take a single free throw all night, but he didn't need it. Was just getting to his spots, doing a great job. And the Nuggets made it such a priority last night to get him free, to put him into the best possible situation where he could deliver and give Denver that initial boost. And it was his production in the first quarter and the second quarter that I think really got the team going. Because once they saw Jamal having some success, there is a spiral effect. There is a residual effect on the rest of the team. When Murray goes, the rest of the team goes. And it's his ability to get going. And when that's the main plan for Denver, when they see the main plan going well, I think it gave the rest of the team a bunch of confidence. And you saw guys like Aaron Gordon hitting threes, Michael Porter just splashing threes, Christian Brown hit a kick-out three, and everybody played great defense. Denver allowed just 90 points last night. It was just such a big deal to be able to flip the script in a way that I don't think the Nuggets and Nuggets fans really expected. I'm a little bit scatterbrained because there's just so much to talk about from last night's game. But I think Murray is the most important place to start because of how valuable it was for the team to see him succeed. Obviously, if you watched the game, you heard the boos, you heard the reaction from the crowd in the way that they did not want him out there. They did not want to see him play. They wanted him suspended for game 3 after the way that he acted on the bench. And Murray, to his credit, owned up to it. He said, yeah, they had justification to boo me. They had they had a reason to do so. And credit to them, credit to Minnesota fans, and then credit to Murray for responding to that. And it's funny. Sometimes you need somebody else to kind of put it into perspective. And I think Murray, hearing those boos and understanding how valuable he was to the series, that Minnesota felt like they needed to boo him on every single possession. Seeing that and hearing that, I bet got Murray going. I really do. I think it got him amped. I think it got him excited. And I think it also just increased his confidence of like, they know what he's capable of. They know what he can do when he's at his best. And he was at his best, at least for the first half last night. Bang asks, how worried would you be, should we be with Jamal saying his calf tightened up in the fourth after the game? I think moderately worried because in this last game, Denver had 3 days off in preparation. This time they will not have that. They're going to need to get him as much treatment as possible and get him off his feet as much as possible between games 3 and game 4. However, I think the Nuggets also found something to the effect of being able to create space for him. There was so much of an emphasis on creating space that wasn't just involving Murray. It was involving the way that they were approaching some of the actions. It was like rather than him bringing the ball up the floor, it was about, hey, we're going to get you off the ball and we're going to sit you in the corner and you're going to run a DHO from the right side of the floor. Or, hey, rather than set the screen and then Jokic maybe tries to slip or Jokic tries to get into space, Jokic set so many brick wall screens last night that it put Denver into a great position to be able to free up Murray a little bit, get him downhill a little bit more, and Murray took advantage of that space. That was one criticism that I had about Murray's game, even against the Lakers, where he was getting a step in separation, a step against Austin Reeves, or in this series, it's Nikola Alexander-Walker or Jaden McDaniels. He was getting space and then allowing the defender to catch up to him. This time, he didn't really do that. This time, it was all about, hey, I've got an inch of space. I've got a step. Let me take advantage of that and get downhill, or at least get to a space where I'm comfortable taking a jumper. And he was much more definitive. Malone talked about last night how the Nuggets tried to simplify their offense a little bit. And I think part of that was just, hey, Joker, set the screen. Jamal used the screen, and that really, really impacted and gave Murray an opportunity to get going. And then the T-Wolves adjusted. I don't think that they and here's one other thing that we should probably talk about. The refs and Tony Brothers specifically. Shout out Tony Brothers. Uh, that man was he was on not on Denver's side, but like he was calling the game in such a way that definitely benefited Denver, where the touch fouls and over contact, overextending, being extremely physical, like the refs were consistently calling that last night. And it was so interesting to see how the Wolves reacted to that and how rather than adjust their defense, they just kept fouling or they just allowed Denver a pathway to score. There was no real in between. Denver played at the right physical level last night, and it bothered Minnesota for much of it. Minnesota, specifically Jaden McDaniels, got into Jamal Murray and others so often that like they were clearly fouls, but they probably wouldn't have been called fouls in game 2 because Mark Davis allowed that game to be a war. And so it's interesting to see how that really changed the complexion of the game, despite the fact that the calls were consistent. This wasn't like an inconsistent thing. The only thing that I thought that they might have allowed Denver to get away with a little bit was Joker getting a little bit of extra leeway on some of those screens. And like, frankly, that's a 3-time MVP for you. Sorry. Like you're mad about that? That's the 3-time MVP. So it's interesting to see how this works, and it's interesting to see how something like that can impact the game. But Murray getting going was so, so important. I cannot stress, I mean, everybody here knows, obviously, but I cannot stress how important it was for Denver's plan A, Murray getting downhill and pick and roll, being as effective as it was. Cannot stress how important that was for this particular game. The other thing, and we should talk about it, Nikola Jokic, just an MVP caliber response. Did not shoot as well in the first half, but then in the second half, especially the third quarter, had 13 points, did a great job of putting himself into positions where he could capitalize on the attention that Murray was getting. And there were some great passes from Murray to Jokic. That was so, so big in terms of getting Jokic on the board. And then, like, so much about how a defense reacts and how a team reacts to when an offense scores. It was like Denver's plan A and plan B was getting Joker and Jamal going, was getting them playing like stars again. And the fact that they both did in this case, while Denver also had great spacing on the perimeter from guys like Michael Porter and Aaron Gordon, both of which we're going to get to in segment 2. They were huge. But Jokic doing what he did, getting going in the third quarter after Murray had got going in the first and second quarter, it was such a big deal. That was what Nuggets basketball is supposed to look like. And I think Nuggets fans should be really excited about that. And Wolves, like, I think the Wolves are going to be a little bit on their heels. There's a lot that they can clean up, obviously. There's a lot that they can learn from. And maybe Joker and Jamal don't play as well in game 4, and there will be a little bit of an adjustment there. But I do think that it's just so important that Denver's plan A and plan B get going the way that they did, because everything that the Nuggets do spirals off of that. And if those two can set the tone for Denver, then it becomes a series. It becomes something that Denver can win. And you got to be excited about that as a Nuggets fan. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the other moments from this game. A lot of other things that I'm excited to talk about, including Aaron Gordon and a couple of lineup adjustments that I thought were really, really interesting from Denver's side of things. We'll be right back. But first, got to tell you a little bit about number 38, who hosted the Mile High Sports and Denver Stiffs for a watch party last night. If you were there, if you were in Denver, definitely check that out, because they're doing it for every single game that the Nuggets and the Avalanche are on the road in this particular round. So the next time that you're going to be able to go watch a Nuggets game is on Sunday. Definitely go check it out. It's a really great vibe, really exciting places. They've got $15 pitchers. There's just a really great energy there that you're going to want to take advantage of. Great food, giveaways from Mile High Sports and from Denver Stiffs. Just a lot of fun, exciting things. Should be very good. We'll be right back on Pickaxe and Roll.
Hey Nuggets fans, Ryan Blackburn here, host of the Pickaxe and Roll podcast on Mile High Sports. We've got the best Denver Nuggets coverage around, so make sure not to miss an episode and subscribe down below to the Mile High Sports YouTube channel. Nuggets off to a great start. Make sure not to miss a thing on Mile High Sports.
All right, we're back. Pickaxe and Roll, Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Really appreciate all the love and support on the podcast, folks. Please hit that like button, that subscribe button down below if you possibly can. All right, let's get into the rest of the game. The game flow for this one was really interesting. The Nuggets really took out the Wolves early on. This felt like a reverse in a lot of ways of game 2, where the T-Wolves crowd, not really sure how to react in this situation. They were, I think, everybody in that building, because it was a really, really amped up crowd at the beginning of this thing. I was tweeting about it. I was sharing videos about it. That crowd was ready to celebrate. That crowd was ready to party. They were so excited to be able to get it going and have some fun and just really celebrate what is a great T-Wolves team. And then the Nuggets had other ideas. They had plenty of other ideas, and it was so funny to see how they reacted there. Because second quarter, Denver took what was like a 10 to 12 point lead to a 20 point lead. And it ultimately settled into a 15-point lead at halftime. Coming out of halftime, that's when I got the sense, especially, the Wolves are going to try to make their run right now. The Wolves are going to try to do what they can to make their run, to be as impactful as possible, and to stop Denver, slow them down. And the one guy that deserves more credit than anybody else in that particular moment was Aaron Gordon. How funny is that? Aaron Gordon, 3 3-pointers in the span of like 4 minutes, including a couple back-to-back threes. Just unbelievable timing. Like, how in the world does that happen if you're the T-Wolves? They have to be kicking themselves, because, I mean, if you're the T-Wolves, you've been moving off of Aaron Gordon for the entire playoffs. You've been daring him to shoot, and he hit a couple not just last night. He hit a couple in game 2. He actually shot 3 of 5 in game 2 from 3-point range, despite the fact that he was like that the Nuggets had, he was a minus 33 in that. And there was something going on that just, like, you didn't really know what to do. In this one, 13 points, 5 assists, only 2 rebounds, but the 3 threes that he hit were so big. I cannot stress enough how big they were. Now in the playoffs, Gordon is 7 of 20 from 3. In the last 2 games, he is 6 of 9, which means he was 1 of 11 in the first 6 games of the series. And you never know where it's going to happen. You never know where the hero is going to be. Aaron Gordon became a hero in a lot of ways, where the crowd, and like Lelu says this here, every time the Wolves scored, AG iced that crowd. That's exactly right, because Gordon, to his credit, like, he's been working on it. He's been taking his time. He's been doing everything he can to put himself into a good position to succeed. But that crowd, every time he took a 3, was like, cool, all good. This guy can't hit us. He can't make this. And he did. Every single time, every single important moment. It takes everybody. it isn't just going to be a Joker and Jamal thing. You have to find opportunities to impact the game as a scorer, even if you're not Joker and Jamal. And Aaron Gordon found a way to do it. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't, I think if you're a Nuggets fan, you're more thinking, okay, that's found money in this particular series, but he's getting these steady opportunities. Like, they're still going to dare him. They're going to try to let him continue to beat them throughout the series. But if he continues to hit at a reasonable clip, that is such a big deal. Such a big deal. The other guy that I think should probably get some credit here. Actually, I mean, all the starters should certainly get credit. Everybody who played last night deserves credit. Michael Porter, who I probably didn't write about enough in last night's article, because so many of these storylines, like Jamal bouncing back was the biggest storyline. Nikola bouncing back and playing the level of defense that he did last night was a big storyline as well. Aaron Gordon hitting 3 threes in the third quarter in like a 4-minute stretch. That's a big deal. Michael Porter, despite the fact that he is a runoff, he is somebody that the opposing team cannot let get free. 6 of 10 from the field, 4 of 5 from 3, 5 of 6 from the line. 4 of those free throws came early on, and it was good offense. It was good process, and he drew some fouls, I think, on Jaden McDaniels. That helped get McDaniels in foul trouble, get him off the floor. And that was such a big, big deal because, you just needed somebody who could provide the space necessary for Jokic and Murray to operate. Gordon, despite the fact that he went 3 of 4, he's not providing space. They're going to dare him. Aaron, Rudy Gobert is defending him every single time. Rudy Gobert is going to rotate off of him and try to impact the rest of the actions. It was just so interesting that Porter, every single time down the floor in transition, every single time, the Nuggets were hunting for his shots. They were trying to get him the opportunity. And there was one where Murray basically takes a 4-on-2, and he looks around, he spots Mike on the right wing, and immediately looks like he's ignoring him. And he tries to drag Karl-Anthony Towns away from guarding him to pick him up in transition. And he immediately finds Mike after that. The Nuggets are looking for Mike. They know how valuable he is. They know what he can do. And he's shooting 48% from 3 in these playoffs now. The dude has been crazy. Through all of this, even in games 1 and 2 of this series, he wasn't perfect, but he was still probably the best or second best Nugget during that time, depending on where you want to rank Justin Holiday. But the fact that he was able to bring that out and put together so many valuable possessions for Denver, despite he doesn't take a lot of shots. 10 shots is not a lot. 6 free throws, that helped a little bit, but 10 shots is not a lot. So how are you going to make the difference? How are you going to make up that number? 21 points is about as many as you can score off of 10 shots. And realistically, Porter delivered. He continues to deliver throughout these playoffs and just has been awesome. So good. KCP bounced back a little bit in guarding Anthony Edwards last night. I went through and looked at the numbers and the tracking data. It wasn't perfect, but I mean, you look at Edwards' stat line and the numbers do speak for themselves here. He is the primary defender when the Nuggets are when they have all their starters out there. He's still the primary defender on Edwards. 8 of 15 from the field, 3 of 8 from 3, 0 free throw attempts is a big one when facing Anthony Edwards. And it's not like I think that Edwards was fouled consistently or anything like that, and the rest didn't call it because they're calling most of the touch fouls. But Edwards had 5 turnovers. The Nuggets showed him bodies. They did everything that they could, and KCP, I thought, won this round against him. But it wasn't just him. There were a lot of guys that I think can take some credit for that. One of them is Christian Braun. Christian Braun like throughout the series, has been one of the only guys that could realistically guard Edwards. And when you say guard, you mean like try to make it a little bit more difficult. Because in the first 2 games, like Edwards was cooking everybody in front of him outside of Justin Holiday and Christian Brown. And so it's interesting to see how that could manifest itself in a game like this, where Denver needs to find opportunities for Christian Brown to play to guard somebody like Edwards. But Denver also doesn't want to break up their starting 5. So how do they get it done? Well, Michael Porter was in foul trouble for much of the second quarter, for much of the first half, frankly. They found ways for him to keep playing. He played through some foul trouble, but he picked up his 3rd foul with about 4.5 minutes to go. And Aaron Gordon was probably going to come back in for Christian Brown at that point, but he came back in for Mike instead, and they let Christian stay out there. And that period of time, like in the second quarter, Edwards just wasn't good enough in that moment. And I think Christian Brown, pretty solid reason why. He did a great job of guarding him in isolation, did a good job of guarding him in not just transition, but like in pick and rolls and things like that. And he is the one guy between, like, so KCP is probably too small, and he's probably not athletic enough, if I'm being honest. Aaron Gordon, a little bit too big, not quick enough to stay in front of Ant, and I think that's borne out in the first 3 games. Christian Brown's in the middle of those two. He's stronger and bigger than KCP, who's a little bit more of a guard defender. He's somebody who I think, and I talked about this before, he is best when dealing with players that are more technical, because KCP is a technician himself and does a great job of crowding space, getting his hands in there, and doing a great job of just making everything harder for a player like that. Anthony Edwards is less of a technician and more of like a superhero. He is so strong and so athletic and so quick that he doesn't need all the technical stuff. He has it in his bag anyway, but you need somebody who is just as athletic as him or can at least match him reasonably well. Christian Brown does that. Christian Brown did a great job with that, and was just really, really impressive to see him handle that assignment and be a professional. And then he hit a 3 on the other side as well. That wasn't the only lineup adjustment, though. The Nuggets at one point had both Michael Porter and Aaron Gordon resting when Joker was out there, and they were playing 4 guards. They were playing Murray, KCP, Justin Holiday at the 3, Christian Brown at the 4, and then Jokic at the 5. Watch out for that lineup going forward. One of the reasons why is because there's no, like, especially when Towns isn't super downhill, when he's not getting downhill as much as he wants to, when he's not getting into the paint, watch for that lineup to be successful for Denver, because the most important thing the Nuggets can do in those four guard lineups is to keep everything in front of them, is to try to avoid allowing guys to get to the rim. Justin Holiday, Christian Brown did a tremendous job of doing that, even when they were matched up against Karl-Anthony Towns and Naz Reid. And I got to give those two so much credit for their ability to adjust to a game plan that was a little bit different. Peyton Watson not really playing as much in this series. Justin Holiday spacing, very important. Christian Brown kind of connecting, really, really important. He's a guy that Michael Malone and the coaching staff trusts. And so Peyton Watson, his minutes have gotten cut down. Not necessarily anything that he's done, but it's just that Denver has found a rhythm here, and they've found something that they like that I think is the reason why Peyton has not played as much. I have a theory that Peyton will be deployed a little bit more in Game 5. So if Denver can get to that, especially tied 2-2, I think that they will deploy Peyton Watson in Game 5, kind of to change up the series a little bit, maybe give Denver a physical and athletic advantage in that moment. But until then, they found a nice lineup here with 4 guards and Jokic that gives Michael Porter and Aaron Gordon an opportunity to rest a little bit. There's no major threat for the Nuggets to have to deal with unless Karl-Anthony Towns or Naz Reid is getting downhill. And those guys just didn't do as good of a job in game 3 as you would expect. Like, Towns shot 4 of 5 from 3. He shot 2 free throws, and he shot 0 of 2 from 2. When he posted up Aaron Gordon one possession, and I think he posted up like Justin Holiday or somebody else on another possession, went 0 of 2 on those possessions. And then just like whenever he drove to the rim, the Nuggets just collapsed on him, and they made it really difficult for him to find some of the passes. Now, he made some impressive plays, but between him and Naz Reid shot 2 of 7 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3, and then had 1 rebound, 1 assist, and was a minus 25 in 21 minutes. The Nuggets know that matching size for size against Minnesota is probably a fool's errand, especially in the second unit. Trying to go big and match up with those guys is probably the wrong call. So, can you play around with the matchups a little bit? Can you try to force those guys to play bully ball in a situation where they may not be comfortable playing bully ball? Is a really, really interesting wrinkle that the Nuggets had. So, I'm curious to see if Minnesota adjusts to that. There were possessions last night where, like very briefly, but with both Cat and Naz Reid on the floor, no Gobert, when you have 2 floor spacing bigs, rather than have Nikola Jokic guard either of those 2, they had him on Nickeil Alexander-Walker in the corner, and that was a really interesting wrinkle to me. So, going to be fascinating to see how Denver attacks it and how Minnesota tries to respond in something like that, but that is something to watch out for, in my opinion. Really, really impressive game from Denver. Really, really impressive moments. And everybody had an opportunity to respond. When we come back, we're going to talk about Jokic and Murray again. And then we're going to talk about, now that this is a series, what the hell is going to go on in game 4. Really excited to see it. We will be right back. But first, this message from Scott DeHuff.
Hey, what's up? It's DeHuff. I love to have fun. So tune into my podcast, DeHuff Uncensored. I give unfiltered takes on Denver sports, crazy news from around the world. Plus, you never know which one of my characters is going to swing by. Well, I hope one of them's your mother. Oh, Connery, Mama is always here for you. What in the blue heck is going on here? So subscribe and get ready to laugh to DeHuff Uncensored anywhere you find podcasts. Follow me on social media at DeHuff Podcast.
All right, we're back. Pickaxe and Roll, Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you can. And if you're on the audio side, thank you so much. Like and subscribe, not subscribe, leave a rating and review on that side of things if you enjoy the content. All right. This is now a series. This is now a matchup that we thought would happen. I remember heading into this series, like before any of the games happened, my initial impression of the series was that it would be 1-1 heading to Minnesota, and then it would be 2-2 coming back. And then it would be a best of 3 after that. Obviously, that didn't fully come to pass. And Denver lost both games in Denver. And then the second one was so bad and so gross that there were a lot of people wondering, and including me, like, is this team broken? Is this team, like, can they handle this moment? Are they the same team that was so resilient both last year, but also in years like the bubble? Is this the same team that could handle that adversity? And I think those were fair questions. I really do. Based off of the way that Denver approached it, based off of the way that they collapsed in game 2, I think that those were fair questions. Michael Malone even said as much, because he said pregame before game 3 that he had never seen Denver react the way that they did in game 2. And so this was a new experience for everybody. But it was so funny last night. Like, it happened, yes, but the way that the Nuggets have compartmentalized that and moved on, but also like they came closer together. They got closer together as a team. Jamal Murray last night was talking about how they spent more time together between games 2 and 3 than they had done in previous games and had done in previous series. And that's good leadership. That's a good opportunity, whether that was DeAndre Jordan, whether that was Jokic and Murray really making that call, whether that was the coaching staff, who knows? Like, I'm sure everybody had an element in that. But in these situations, you often see teams fracture. You often see teams find ways to blame each other and for the outside noise to creep in. Michael Malone last night talked about how he made a supercut of all of the national experts, all the ones that, like, that I know. And I jokingly said that it was me. I made the cut. All the national experts basically saying that the Nuggets are done. That they, like, after game 2, it was over. It was done. The series is over. And apparently got the Nuggets going. That got the competitive juices flowing a little bit. And how couldn't it? Like, I mean, that's exactly what you're hoping for as a coach and like as a team, is you want the motivation. You want like the doubt where other people don't believe in you. And you can use that as a little bit of a prop to kind of get back into the series. Between the boos last night for Jamal Murray, between Jokic kind of coming into his own in the third quarter, really delivering in a situation where the Nuggets needed him to deliver, and between the way that the Wolves sort of reacted themselves, they looked like the team that was on their heels. The Wolves did last night. They were like multiple texts being handed out to Nikola Alexander-Walker, Naz Reid, and Kyle Anderson. All those guys. I wonder what it looks like in game 4. I wonder if the Wolves, like if they bring a similar level of energy, they'll probably lose again. And then you got a series, obviously, going back to Denver, tied 2-2. I don't expect the Wolves to bring the same energy. I expect them to bring better, more positive energy tomorrow in game 4. And for that reason, I think we're going to get a great game 4. We might not, like, oftentimes in situations like these, you talk up a moment like this and then it goes one way or the other. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess that happened. Guess it didn't happen the way that we expected it. And that could happen in game 4. But between Denver really going all out last night to get back into the series and the Wolves knowing that they have to respond, knowing that they can't let all of the work go away that they put together in games 1 and 2, they're going to battle. The Nuggets are going to battle. The Nuggets sense blood. The Nuggets sense an opportunity here. Now, is that stronger than the Wolves' sense of, hey, we have to get this back going? I don't know. I think that Anthony Edwards will be way better than he was in game 3. I think that the T-Wolves, as well coached as they are, they'll find more ways to take advantage of the Nuggets going smaller in game 3 and then try to approach that in a positive way in game 4 and try to get to the rim a little bit more, because the Wolves were settling. They were settling for some pretty meh shots, some possessions that you wouldn't expect from them that they didn't do in games 1 and 2. But something that Michael Malone said pregame now sticks out to me. He was talking about how it really is the Nuggets offense, but then referenced that the Wolves, like in this series prior to game 3, were averaging 106 points per game. When you add in the 90 points that they're averaging now, it's now closer to like 100 points per game, basically. That's all Denver has to get to on the offensive end. But it makes me think, man, Like Denver's defense hasn't been perfect, and their defense on Ant specifically, like especially in the first two games, is still something that I think we should be critical of. But between that and the Wolves also shooting 42% on catch and shoot threes in this series, the fact that they're only averaging 100 points per game is pretty wild. Like everything else in between has mostly gone Denver's way. Denver's done a great job defensively on the in-between stuff. Not necessarily a great job against Ant overall, not necessarily doing a great job against catch and shoot three-point shooters, but everything else, they found a way to be impactful. So does that set up for another strong defensive performance in game 4? Denver's offense found a way to get going in game 3. I'm sure the Wolves will adjust. Jaden McDaniels probably won't be in as strong of foul trouble as he was in game 3. Nikola Alexander-Walker was a little bit beat up and bruised physically in this game 3 from the Jokic screens and from the physicality that the Nuggets played with. How does he respond physically in game 4? Can he play with the same level of defense and intensity? That's a good question. All of the elements are gearing up towards a great game 4, towards a great opportunity for both teams to try to claim the series. Because if Denver wins it, then it's 2-2, going back to Denver, basically now a best-of-3 series where Denver's got 2 home games at their disposal. And if you're a Nuggets fan, you got to feel pretty good about the way that Denver would turn that around. If the Wolves win game 4, then it's 3-1 going back to Denver. And that is a lot to try to overcome. We've obviously seen Denver overcome that. We've seen them find a way to do what they need to do against a team like the Clippers or the Jazz in the bubble. Interestingly enough, Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, involved in that first one against the Jazz. So Denver has experience in coming back from 3-1. You don't want to let it get to that, though, if you can help it. So if you're Denver, game 4 becomes so huge. Game 4, I think, you hear this often in situations like this one where the winner of game 4 wins the series. I don't know if that will happen. Like, it's very possible that the Nuggets win 2-2, and then the Wolves come back and they take back momentum going forward after that. But everybody, as Dehan so eloquently puts here, I would prefer 2-2 instead of 3-1. I think I agree. Been a lot to have to overcome for Denver. Jamal Murray's had to overcome a lot. It's still not over. Like, the Nuggets are hoping that this is still a long, long playoff run. And even if they get through this series, they'd only be halfway there. But you can't think ahead. You got to take this one game at a time. And the fact that Denver was able to recover in the way that they did in game 3 should be very exciting for Nuggets fans. They showed fight. They showed energy. They showed a willingness to do what it takes, even if it involves getting physical, even if it involves playing tougher. And they certainly showed that toughness. It's exactly what you're going to want to see. Folks, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at number 38, over at BetOnline. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I really appreciate all the love and support on the pod. Really excited to be out here in Minneapolis. If there's anything content-wise that you'd like from me out here other than just the podcast, let me know. Be really excited to just try to deliver as well as I can for everyone here. Lots of awesome folks in the comments trying to be as supportive as possible. Obviously appreciated. Thank you so much for tuning into the show, everybody. Please hit that like button, that subscribe button on the way out. I will talk to you guys tomorrow.